Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. The video today is new release review, where I give you my thoughts and opinions about the most recent brand new releases. Are they worth your time? But most importantly, are they worth your money? So today I'm starting off with Gladiator 2. Now this movie I was looking forward to watching because I did not see it at the movie theater. By the way, Paramount sent this over to me, so huge thank you to Paramount. But I missed out on this movie at the theater. So I was looking forward to watching it for the first time at home. And I knew about the mixed reviews about the film. Some were positive, some people really enjoyed it. But for the most part, the reviews for Gladiator 2 were either mixed or towards the negative. So that's why I wanted to watch the movie and make my own decision. And I do have to say, I'm not really sure that this sequel was really needed or it wasn't necessary. Now, before I get into my thoughts about that, I do want to talk about the positives of the movie because I'm not saying the movie is bad. I'm not saying it's horrible. It's a solid film, but just not necessary. But the positives about the movie, really quickly, the entire look of the film, production design, cinematography, costume design, everything about the film as far as looks wise, looks really well done. Denzel Washington, his character in the movie to me was the most interesting character, the most dynamic. He stood out the most to me, and that's the reason why he was receiving nominations early on in award season. But other than that, nothing about the film really stands out. And the reason why is because pretty much Gladiator 2 is a duplicate of the first movie. But the reason why, to me, Gladiator 2 just does not work, or it's not on that epic level as the first film, is because you don't have Russell Crowe. And you can't have Russell Crowe because we all know his fate from the first movie. I rewatched the first Gladiator to prepare for Gladiator 2 to kind of get in the mood for it. And Russell Crowe's character, the way he's first presented in the opening sequence, that epic battle in that first film, is just so fantastic because that entire sequence establishes him as a fantastic leader and a great warrior, and he continues to be that throughout the entire film. There's just something about Russell Crowe that is so dynamic and just so amazing in that movie. Paul Mescal pretty much is the Russell Crowe type character in Gladiator 2. He does not get anywhere near that, unfortunately. Now, obviously, he's a completely different character. Obviously, he's not Russell Crowe, but I mean, it's missing something. Gladiator 2 is missing something. It's missing that essence. And what that is Russell Crowe. Paul Mescal just did not have it. I'm not saying that he had a bad performance in the movie, but it just was not on the level of Russell Crowe. He won the Oscar for a reason for that role. That movie won Best Picture for a reason. So it's just disappointing. And the same thing with the twin emperors in Gladiator 2. They are nothing compared to Joaquin Phoenix in the first movie. So there's a lot of comparisons here, and Gladiator is the superior film. So I do have to agree that the second movie really was not needed. It's just a carbon copy of the first film, but it's not a bad movie. It is watchable. I will rewatch it in the future, but it's just not on the level of that first movie. Probably the worst part of Gladiator 2 for me, and I will say this, is that, of course, there's CGI being used throughout the movie, clearly. And there's one part that just really stood out and bothered me because the CGI was very wonky. And that was when it came to the fight with the monkeys very early on in the film. I mean, clearly these monkeys are CGI. There's no way they could ever be like real life monkeys fighting. So clearly they are computer generated, but they're looking wonky. Like, you can really, really tell. It's very obvious. So that was probably one of the worst parts for me about the movie. But again, overall, it's a solid film. Was it really needed? I have to say no. I tend to agree with some people. It really was not needed, but it's not a bad movie. I would say if you're interested in Gladiator 2 for the physical media, either wait for a sale or stream it. Right now, it's currently available to stream on Paramount Plus. Watch the movie. If you want to pick up the physical media down the line, wait for a sale or not. Just stream it. I don't know, but you definitely don't need to pay full price for the physical. I will say that. Now let's move on to Red 1 4K. So this movie came over from Warner Brothers, and this was a rewatch for me because when the movie went to Amazon Prime so quickly, just in time for the Christmas holidays, because it dropped in movie theaters right in mid-November, and it seemed like a month later it went to Amazon Prime for Christmas. So we watched it at home. All three of us, we watched it, and we had a great time with this movie. And I will say, rewatching it, again, we had a great time. I feel like with Red 1, and this is something that I talked about in a previous video, I feel like with Red 1, a lot of people were just very overly negative with the film. And that's something that I'm tending to find with a lot of people these days, whether it be movies in general or 4K transfers. It just seems like we're kind of just overly critical about a lot of aspects with movies and physical media these days. And I really wish we would kind of just stop it and cut it out, because not every movie is meant to be an Academy Award winner. You know, like there's some movies that come out we know are garbage, but either we love them because they mean something to us, or, you know, for all different reasons. And Red 1 is one of those movies that is just meant to be a good time with families and children. This is targeted towards kids. I mean, it's clearly targeted towards children. You have Santa Claus that gets kidnapped right before Christmas Eve, and then Dwayne Johnson plays like his head elf who's always by his side. And so he teams up with Chris Evans, who is the quote unquote best tracker in the world, to find Santa Claus. That is a ridiculous plot line. But you know what? There's other Christmas movies from the past that have also had ridiculous plot lines. The Santa Claus, that's a ridiculous plot line. Santa Claus falls off the roof, dies, and the guy that finds him becomes the next Santa. I mean, that's crazy. That's a ridiculous plot line. But you know what? The Santa Claus has gone on to become one of the most iconic Christmas films of all time. Now, I'm not saying that Red 1 is ever going to be on that level, but I don't know. It just seems like, you know, in the 80s and 90s, movies that came out, we kind of just accepted them for what they were. And if we thought they were cool, yeah, we embraced them, no problem. But like this movie comes out and everyone jumps all over it and calls it garbage. I'm not really sure why, to be honest. Maybe it is the inflated budget that they did have, because I think the movie cost between $200 and $250 million. That is excessive, but this movie, there's a lot of CGI going on, and also you have a lot of, you know, cast budget here that went to their salaries and things like that. So that's probably why this movie was so inflated with cost. But if you're just looking at the movie for what it is, it's a fun movie. It's a fun movie. I had a good time with it. So Red 1, I recommend it. If you want to wait for a sale, go ahead. Wait for a sale. Pick it up. It is streaming on Amazon Prime. I believe it is still streaming over there. I got rid of my Amazon Prime. No longer subscribed to Amazon Prime, so I'm not really sure what's over there, but I believe it still is. But it's worth checking out. And also, it's nice to have another Christmas film in the holiday rotation in case you're tired of watching Christmas Vacation for the billionth time. You can watch something else and watch Red 1. So I recommend Red 1. It was a good time. All right, now the 4 remaining movies are all from Kino Lorber. So the first one is the 4K of Daylight with my man Sly Stallone. Now this was a movie I have seen one time prior, so I was already familiar with the film. I love disaster movies, and that's what this is. So you have Sly, who, I'm not exactly sure. I can't remember his exact position, but he held a certain position, but he got fired from it, where he was like, rescuing people and things like emergency situations. He was like a chief or something. Well, what happens in Daylight is that the disaster part of this movie is that people that are driving in the New Jersey tunnel, and like an explosion happens, an accident happens, an explosion happens, and so there's like a massive car wreck inside the tunnel, and there's like a point where the tunnel it gets cut off, so there's like a dozen people that are trapped in this one section of the tunnel, and pretty much it's a race against time because water's starting to come in, and of course there's electrical wires everywhere. It's a very dangerous scenario. You have people of all ages stuck inside this tunnel, and apparently the only man for the job is Sly Stallone. He's the only one in the entire city of New York that can go in and save them. So that's what Daylight is all about. What I really enjoy about Daylight, because I have seen several disaster movies, I love disaster films, so whenever there's a new one, I always try to watch it. But what I enjoy about Daylight is that there's a couple of moments in the film that really do get emotional, and it pulls on your heartstrings just a little bit, because not everyone survives. Not everyone survives in from the tunnel, and there are some casualties, and you get attached to these characters, and so when that does occur, you get a little emotional. So I do enjoy that element about Daylight, and I think that's something that kind of sets it apart from other disaster films. So how is the 4K transfer of Daylight? Well, I will say this. Sorry. I am kind of disappointed with the 4K transfer because I don't believe it's a standout. From watching the Blu-ray to the 4K, there are some moments where I'm like, oh, I see a difference. Sly looks really good right there, or this section of the movie looks really good. It's inconsistent. It's not solid all the way through. So my best recommendation for you, I do recommend that you pick up the movie because the movie itself I really enjoy. But as far as the 4K transfer goes, I would wait for the next Kino Lorber sale where Daylight is a part of it and just pick it up then. You can pick it up for $17.99. You probably will still be able to get a slipcover with it. So I would wait for that sale. All right, the next 4K from Kino is The General's Daughter. So I was looking forward to rewatching this. Now, I had seen this movie one time prior, a long time ago. I honestly cannot remember the last time I watched it. This came out in 1999. So this was probably around that time, maybe 2000 I watched this. I don't know. So it's been like, let's just say 25 years since I've seen this movie. And it's been a while since I've seen anything with John Travolta. And so I enjoyed watching this movie again. This is kind of like an underrated thriller for me, I think, because, I mean, not enough people talk about this movie, I don't think. And this is the type of film I really enjoy watching because, unfortunately, a woman is murdered in the movie, and obviously her case has to be solved. But where it really, becomes important is because she's the daughter of this very well-known general who's wanting to go on to be vice president of the United States. And so there's a lot at stake in this movie. And John Travolta, who plays a cop in the film, also has a military background. Madeline Stowe also comes in to assist John Travolta in solving the case. They have a romantic background and backstory together. So that's kind of interesting and just like, makes everything heightened, just a little bit. James Woods is in the movie as well. And also James Cromwell plays the father to the woman who is murdered. I really enjoy this movie. It's right up my alley. It has everything that I like to watch. And as far as the 4K transfer goes, I think it is very solid. It didn't blow my mind away. It's not on a super fantastic level, but I do think it is worth your time and also worth your money. So my best advice, probably again, along with Daylight, I would wait for a sale. I would wait for a future Kino Lorber sale. The next brand new release that I watched is probably one of my favorites from the pile. It is the Blu-ray of Arabesque with Gregory Peck and also Sophia Loren. So what's happening in this movie is that Gregory Peck plays a college professor, and he is approached by someone that wants him to decode like a secret message because he specializes in decoding hieroglyphics. And so because of that, they think Gregory Peck is going to be able to decode this message. And he becomes very suspicious of this and also the person's intentions as to why they want this decoded. And pretty much this movie just snowballs into this fantastic adventure mystery story. Sophia Loren also becomes a part of the plot line, and you don't even know where to go with her because it seems like you can't trust her, but then you think you can, and you never really know where to go with her because she's just so good in this movie. Sophia Loren probably is the highlight for me in this film, but Gregory Peck is just also so good. And the two of them throughout the entire film have this flirtation thing happening along with the adventure that they're on. They're running away from people. There's an assassination plot that's revealed. There's a lot going on in this movie. It's pretty much nonstop, start to finish. So I highly enjoyed Arabesque, and I recommend that you guys pick this up. And even though this is just a Blu-ray, it looks fantastic. It looks awesome because I did notice, I didn't see this previously, but right before when I was just looking everything over, I saw on the back, it is from a 4K scan of the original camera negative. And that's the reason why it looks so good. So Arabesque, high recommendation, high. Pick this one up. If you love the older classic movies with the older Hollywood movie stars, you really will enjoy Arabesque. I did, you did. This is a great movie. Going from a great movie to a not so great movie. I was not fond of this movie, and this is the last film that we're talking about. It's just coincidental that it is the last movie. I did not really care for this one. Best Defense. Best Defense with Dudley Moore and also Eddie Murphy. This is also just a regular Blu-ray. It's not a 4K. This is also from a 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative. So what I will say about Best Defense, what's going on in this movie, it's kind of like two storylines happening at the exact same time, separated by, I believe, 2 years. I think if I'm remembering correctly, Dudley Moore's storyline in the movie is happening in 1982 or something, and Eddie Murphy's storyline is happening in 1984. They never share the screen together because obviously they're separated by 2 years, just to let you guys know that. So what's going on in Best Defense, and why did I not really care for this movie? So when it comes to Dudley Moore's character and what's happening in the film. So Dudley Moore works for a company where they provide parts for military, and they're working on a specific part for a tank. And so it has to work, otherwise the tank is going to malfunction. And what's happening in Eddie Murphy's storyline in the movie is that 2 years later, he's one of the men driving the tank. Get what I'm saying? That's why the storylines are correlated and related, I guess, if that's how you say it. I don't know. But that's how they're intertwined, if you will. So why didn't I like this movie? Because it seems like, it kind of seems a little bit interesting. Dudley Moore's character in this movie is awful. He's awful. He's such an awful person, an awful character. First of all, I know this movie is from, back in the day. It came out in 1984. Now, back in 1984, in the 80s, treating women a certain way back in the 80s is certainly different than it is today, because today you could not get away with what they do talking about women in this movie. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, Dudley Moore, first of all, his character is married to Kate Capshaw. beautiful Kate Capshaw. We're talking about the Indiana Jones Temple of Doom days, okay? Like, she was very attractive back in the day. But apparently his wife is not good enough because there is someone at his job, a woman that he finds extremely attractive. And she is. She's very attractive. She's very easy on the eyes, what have you. And him and his like best friend coworker just go back and forth in this movie. There's one scene in particular where they actually dissect and talk back and forth about what they would do to her sexually. As I'm watching this, I'm like, is this for real? Like, is this serious? First of all, how did they get away with this? I mean, like I said, the 80s were a completely different time period, but still, like the over sexualization in that one scene regarding their coworker, and she's not even just a coworker, she is their boss. Okay, so like it's just wrong on so many levels. And also what's so despicable about his character is that the certain part that they're working for the tank, it does not work. And so because of circumstances that happen in the movie, he receives the plans that, oh, this is a great prototype. This actually works. This will work for the tank. But it's not his idea. He pretty much steals the idea, you know, passes it off as his own. He works himself up in the company. Everyone loves him now because prior to this, he's not a well-liked character. And I can see why. I can see why, because he's just not a good person. He really is not a good person at all. His house is like a house of cards that he puts his wife and son in. Like their front door is falling off. It's like he does not care about his family. He's too busy talking about his hot boss at the office. It is so ridiculous, so ridiculous. The entire time, what's the runtime of this? The entire 94 minutes that I'm watching this movie, I was literally like this. Like, what is this? What am I watching right now? I just could not believe it. And then on top of that, there actually is one scene where the hot boss thinks that, you know, everything works now because of him, but it doesn't. And she thinks that she's fallen in love with him and his mind and everything, and she wants to sleep with him. And he agrees, and he agrees, and he actually goes up to the hotel room. And I'm like, you are knowingly cheating on your wife. Like, what are you doing? It's so bad. It's just so horrible. He is such a bad character. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Dudley Moore to begin with, but like, my gosh, like this movie just cements everything that I do not like about Dudley Moore. And then on the other side, when we do get to Eddie Murphy, because it says like, strategic guest star, it says that for a reason, because Eddie Murphy really is not in this movie much at all. Maybe like 15 minutes tops throughout the entire film, and that's it. Pretty much all you see him, he's in the tank. He's in the tank and he's driving around, and you know, that's it. He's like freaking out at some points in Eddie Murphy fashion, and that is all. But yeah, I just did not really care for Best Defense because I absolutely hated and despised Dudley Moore's character. So I cannot necessarily recommend this movie to you. If you guys have a similar movie taste to mine, you're probably not going to enjoy this, but if you're curious about it, wait for a sale. Definitely do not pick this up at full price. That I definitely guarantee you. Definitely guarantee. Wait for a Kino Lorber sale. Like when the next sale rolls around and this is a part of it, you can pick it up for like $9, $10 maximum, but I would go for something else. Get Daylight, get The General's Daughter, get Arabesque. Not Best Defense. I did not care for this one. So unfortunately, this is the bad one, the worst of the batch, the batch, I don't know, the bad apple, whatever it is. Didn't really care for it, unfortunately. Thank you, Kino, for sending it, but it was not for me. It was not my cup of tea. So that is the latest round of all of the brand new releases I have been watching lately. So comment down below and let me know what you have been watching lately. Don't forget to like and subscribe before you leave, and I'll see you next time.